Well, let's now bring in filmmaker Ami Horowitz to talk all things campus protest. Welcome back to the program. I got to ask you about these anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, and frankly, seemingly pro-Hamas campus protests that just don't seem to want to quit. Ami, are you surprised that they're going on so long?
No, I'm not, because, look, you have an administration that has essentially given them oxygen by throwing Israel under the bus, right? It took them a long time to condemn these protests. And then when you ask the protesters, why are you there? They say, well, even the administration is saying that Israel is targeting civilians. The administration plays around with the blame of Israel, saying we're going to embargo you with weapons because we feel you were involved in war crimes. When the administration is saying that, that gives oxygen, that gives these people the allowance to do what they're doing. So I'm not surprised. They are hardcore, and this has been set up for a very long time. They're here for a while.
Yeah, and Ami, tell me, though, about this, because it seems like the White House has now created this situation where they've got a huge problem if they go too hard or don't go hard enough on Israel with voters in places like Michigan, but they've got a huge problem with these campus protests if they go hard on Israel, don't go hard enough on Israel. It seems like they've created this huge dilemma for themselves now, and it's entirely muddled. And as long as these protests keep going on, I would think that ordinary Americans are thinking, geez, I don't want to be anything involved with these people.
Yeah, never mind the moral issue involved with not taking a stand to stand with Israel. Just from a political perspective, it was a massive, massive mistake and miscalculation, right? So initially he said, okay, I'm going to stand with Israel because, frankly, I do believe that's where the president's heart is. But when he came to realize that, oh, God, the margin of error is so small when it comes to Michigan and Georgia and Minnesota, I better flip on my morals for political expediency. But guess what? It was a massive mistake politically because these people are already aligned against Biden. None of these people, no matter how hard you go against Israel, and he has gone against Israel hard to the hoop, are going to come back to the party. I recently did a video, we haven't released yet, and I asked these protesters, who are you going to vote for? Every single one of them said they will not vote for Biden. In fact, they said they've lost, the Democratic Party has lost them forever. And if I went further, and they were comparing, and this is not a joke, they were comparing Joe Biden to Hitler. He is so far gone from getting these people to vote, yet he's still kowtows toward them. He's still trying to get cravenly trying to get their votes, even though they won't vote for him. And in the process, he's throwing Israel under the bus.
And in the process, too, I would imagine that he's also probably throwing under the bus or tossing away an awful lot of moderate voters who might be swinging voters one way or the other, but look at these protests and say, well, this side is completely, nuts, and they're supporting Hamas, and they're anti-Israel, and they're anti-Semitic, and Joe Biden seems to be pandering to them. So it would seem to be he's losing not, one set of voters, but potentially two.
Yeah, no, this is not good. This is not a good look for Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, and for the left in general. No. And I think this is going to cost him in the polls significantly. Absolutely. No question about it.
Yeah, and I'm really interested, too, in the way some of the media seems to be very, confused about this, because on the one hand, they want to get Biden over the line. On the other hand, they're very much on the side of these protesters. And there was an interesting report this morning out of the Washington Post that claimed that a WhatsApp group involving a whole bunch of New York's biggest business leaders, they call them business titans, essentially conspired to push Mayor Eric Adams to clear the encampment at Columbia University in New York. And the implication of this whole piece was that this was sinister and wrong somehow. Ami, I'd love to get your reaction to this sort of reporting, which seems to be treating these protesters as, this kind of new vanguard of a freedom movement.
Yeah, it was a really weird article and a particularly weird title. Like you said, you used the word business titans. Yeah, look, I think there might have been some of that. I try not to ascribe anti-Semitism and malice when, in fact, I could just place stupidity and ignorance in front of it. And I'd like to believe it's stupidity and ignorance and not anti-Semitism or malice. But the reality is, no, there's nothing wrong. And in fact, I think that these Jewish donors who've been donating to these universities for years and years, knowing they've been a cesspool for anti-Israel, anti-Semitism for years, continue to do it. I think that frankly, they should have put pressure with their pocketbook way sooner than they have. They have now, but it's kind of too late. These endowments are already in the multi-billion dollars, a lot of it based on their funding. I think it was a mistake they didn't do it sooner. So I'm glad they're doing it now.
And finally, I want to just ask you about one other topic, Ami. I remember during the COVID pandemic, you did some amazing, great work on asking people about the origins of the COVID pandemic, asking people if they thought that maybe global warming caused it or if it was racist to blame China. And I've got to get your reaction to this news story in the New York Post that at long last, the National Institutes of Health Principal Deputy Director Lawrence Tabak has admitted to Congress that U.S. taxpayers funded gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Ami, are you surprised by this? And what would you love to say to some of the people who said, oh, no, it's racist to talk about this, or, oh, no, it must have come from a wet market?
Yeah, believe it or not, I might have a lot to say on this topic. Shocking, I know. Look, do I have a problem with the idea of gain-of-function research? No. Like, I'm not a scientist, but I'm playing one on Sky News today. Look, we do have to do work to figure out how these viruses operate, how to manipulate them, and how to protect ourselves from pandemics. There's no issue with that. The issue I have, first of all, is that we allow this work to be done in China, which has no history of governance in trying to protect. In fact, they've had tons of lab leaks. They are not good in governance of control of these experimentations. That's A. B, I blame Fauci, right? In Fauci we trust, for putting semantic manipulations on the word gain-of-function research to try to squirrel out of the fact they were doing it. Just be straight and honest with us. And frankly, I also blame how the National Institute of Health scrub the definition of gain-of-function research from their website so they wouldn't be culpable. Look, the party of science, right? This is what pisses me off so much. The party of science, when I say, well, then I want to investigate the origins of COVID, and maybe, possibly, it came not from a pangolin in a wet market, but maybe it came from a lab in Wuhan where this darn thing started that actually works with the novel coronavirus. Is that crazy? No. You're racist if you say that, right? The party of science says that you're racist if you say that. And by the way, I put the party of science in the same bucket as COVID deniers. Same idea.
Bingo. Ami Horowitz, that's absolutely right. Party of science, party of Lysenko is more like it. Thank you so much for your time. Everybody go check out Ami Horowitz's videos online.